Welcome. Today we're going to cover ensuring academic integrity for students. It's a very important topic. We appreciate your time joining us today and hope that this is of value to you. We are your presenters today. I am Holly Hubenschmidt from the library.
And I am Carolyn Brown from the Academic Resource Center. So let's have an introduction to academic integrity. Academic honesty entails being both honest and accurate in the work you submit as a student at the university. Academic honesty and use of standard citation is the cultural norm in U.S. academics. Many countries and academic cultures follow the same norms, but some may not. And most importantly, accidental and intentional academic dishonesty can have a negative impact on your educational and professional career.
This also sounds so doom and gloom, but I have a feeling we're going to learn a lot of strategies today to prevent all of this.
We are, Holly. We're going to show you ways and strategies that you can avoid being academically dishonest and ensure integrity in your work.
So at Webster, you are getting a U.S. education. Whether you're studying at one of our international campuses or online, it is a U.S.-based education. And so there are certain guidelines, norms that we follow within our culture that do apply to academic honesty. So writing and creative work are owned by the individual who created them. That means as a student, if you write a paper, that is your work. It doesn't belong to the university. It doesn't belong to the professor teaching your class. It is yours. When you're using someone else's work, word for word, in the U.S., that's not considered an honor like it is in some other cultures. You can certainly quote something, you can certainly paraphrase something, but you truly need to cite that work and give credit to the original writer or thinker. If you just use it, even if in your culture you think it is honoring someone, if you do not cite it, it is a form of cheating, and there are serious consequences. This one might be pretty obvious, but buying or borrowing a paper is cheating. The work needs to be yours. You are learning in these programs, and the faculty want to see what you're learning, how you're integrating all of these new ideas you're being exposed to. It's very exciting. Writing papers is work, but it's really important to the educational experience and to you synthesizing everything you're learning. Buying or borrowing a paper might be expensive and might be easy, but it is not going to help your learning. And if you are caught, there are very serious consequences for that. And it also is pretty obvious. Your professors get to know you. They get to know your writing style, your speaking style. If they're reading a paper or a portion of a paper that doesn't sound like you, red flags go up. They totally are aware that there's a problem here and that they don't recognize that voice. And it's disheartening for them as well, because your faculty wants you to do well. They want you to succeed, and giving you an opportunity to write papers, that's exactly what they're doing. They're giving you an opportunity to shine. So when a student does make that choice to use someone else's work and claim it as their own, it is disheartening.
Okay, let's talk about some different types of academic dishonesty. The first one is cheating, using dishonest ways to improve one's grade. So that might look like keeping notes on you during an exam or getting out your cell phone and looking up answers on your exam. That is considered cheating. Plagiarism is using the words, ideas, or thoughts of another person without giving credit. And it's important to note here that it's more than just someone's words. It's actually their ideas and thoughts, or their intellectual property. Once you have taken something that somebody else has said or thought, you need to cite that. Otherwise, it's considered plagiarism. Next is fabrication, giving untrue information, whether personal or academic. And this might look like you working on your resume to submit to an internship or a job, and perhaps you put some job responsibilities on there that you didn't really have, or maybe you were dishonest about a salary that you had in the past. So you definitely want to avoid fabrication. And finally, facilitating dishonesty, helping another person be dishonest in his or her work. So if you let somebody else look off your exam while you're taking an exam, or if you let someone borrow your paper to look at, even just to see how they approach that assignment, that is considered facilitating dishonesty, and you will be just as responsible for that dishonesty as the person who borrowed the work from you.
We do want to give you a sense of how serious this is, and there are disciplinary actions kind of written into the code at Webster. So if you do choose to take a dishonest path, there are consequences. And the instructor is really the gatekeeper for a lot of those consequences, and they have some options which could involve reduced grade, partial credit, making you repeat an assignment. They might issue a failing grade for the assignment or for the course. And if the assignment, they might assign you to write something about reflecting on what you did, just so that you can get better in touch with the wrongness of that action. If you receive an unsatisfactory grade, whether that's a C for a grad student or an F for an undergrad, it could lead to probation or even dismissal from the university based on the rules within the course catalog. So there's very serious consequences for making these choices. We do know that sometimes these aren't choices, they're accidents. And we're going to get into that a little bit more as we go. But to make a conscious decision to cheat, to copy, and not give credit is very serious in academia, and we treat it as such.
Okay, so you definitely want to give credit when you use another person's ideas, opinions, or theories, facts, statistics, graphics, drawing, music, or any other type of information that is not common knowledge. So even if you take or borrow a chart or a graph from another paper or another report, and you put it into your own report, you not only have to cite it at the end of your paper, but you have to cite it within your paper as well.
That's something I see occasionally in PowerPoints, is people will use an image and it isn't credited where they got that image.
Exactly. So that also counts for PowerPoints, Prezis, any kind of document that you write and present to other people. You have to cite your sources. You also have to give credit when you use quotations from another's spoken or written words, and when you paraphrase another's spoken or written words. So even if you take someone else's ideas and you put them into your own words, you still have to give credit and cite that source.
Let's go a little bit deeper into that idea of the visual aids, the things you might use in a PowerPoint or a Prezi or a Spark page. The pictures, the illustrations, the videos that you choose to use do require credit if they are not yours. If they, often for educational use, it is okay to use them in a classroom presentation, but it's important to be aware if it is copyrighted material, it can't be used beyond that. You couldn't go ahead and make copies and hand them out among coworkers or something if you're presenting on a project that you're doing at work. you have to respect the copyright or the level of copyright that's associated with that work. Creative Commons licensing is available, and often those materials allow you to do a little bit more with the image, with the item, but you really do need to do a little bit of research on the copyright. And if the material is free to use, still be sure to cite it. Not only is it often required, even for Creative Commons work, they want you to acknowledge the source, but it's good academic practice. It's going to make you look more reputable if you are giving acknowledgement to the creators of the images or the ideas that you're using.
Let's talk a little bit about paraphrasing. So when you paraphrase, you have to do more than just switching out synonyms or changing only a few words, because otherwise you will have to put that material into direct quotes. Basically, a paraphrase means that you're reorganizing, restructuring an entire sentence, but you're keeping the intentional original meaning from that person. So to paraphrase properly, not only the word choice, but also the structure must be completely rewritten. And there are exceptions. Proper nouns are extremely specific terms or numbers that cannot be naturally paraphrased.
I think this is something that a lot of people get confused about, because sometimes you do find those things that are just, the original author said them so well that it's hard to try to come up with a better way to say it or a way to summarize it. But you're right, Carolyn, these are really important things to be sure that you're taking into account.
So please stay away from websites like thesaurus.com to look up other words, because you'll pick out words that don't necessarily mean the same thing, and it's not in your natural voice, and it still won't actually be enough to count as a paraphrase. So you're better off just rewriting the sentence entirely.
So one of the words we've mentioned is plagiarism. And really, to understand, we want you to be aware of what plagiarism is so that you can avoid it. And direct plagiarism uses sources exactly as the original. So there's no attempt to paraphrase, but then you do not give the credit, you do not cite, you do not put the quotation marks up. So if a reader were just to peruse your paper, they would be under the impression that those are your words and your ideas. This can happen because maybe you copied directly from a source, a sentence, a paragraph, and then didn't cite it. And even if you cite the original source, if it's word for word what is written in the original source, you do need those quotation marks so that people know that this is someone else's voice that you're bringing into your paper.
You may not realize this, but there is something called self-plagiarism, and that means that you're submitting your own work for a different course or a project into another course. So let's say you wrote a paper a couple of courses ago, and you have a new assignment in a class, and it happens to be very similar to what you had previously written. You cannot submit that paper in any form to that new class. The reason why is that instructors do assign projects for you with the expectation that it will reflect what you've learned in their course and will have new views and ideas. However, if you feel that there is something that you've written in the past that may be applicable to a current paper, and it's a reasonable amount, you can ask your professor for permission to include that, and then you'll need to cite yourself. But it's very important to communicate with your professor in advance so that you aren't surprising him or her with something you had previously written. And the same university consequences apply to self-plagiarism as any other form of plagiarism.
Sometimes we see with students maybe who aren't real confident with the material that they need to write about, that they may rely a little too much on their sources. So you really can't have too many sources or quotes or paraphrases in a paper where basically you're just stringing together others' ideas and not doing any synthesis or very little, very little of your own voice is showing through that paper. So even if you use the material correctly, you could find that if your voice is not strong in that paper, it's going to affect your grade. Faculty expect your paper to be a blend of your insight, what you've learned, with that knowledge that's out there. You're entering a scholarly conversation when you write a paper, and you're taking in the voices of other scholars, the people that you're quoting and paraphrasing. But you are a scholar too in that position, and the paper has to really reflect your thoughts and your ideas and how you're synthesizing those into this broader conversation. So it has to be more than just research. It can't be just quote, paraphrase, slap a conclusion on there, I'm done. You really want to strive for a balance of the source information, your own analysis and reflection. This is discipline specific too. If you are doing a literature analysis for an English class, you might have a lot of Shakespearean quotes in there as you're talking about that play. But if you're doing research in anthropology, you want to bring in outside voices. You want to review the literature that exists, but your own voice must be strong in there.
That's an excellent point, Holly. Here's some recommendations for writing with integrity. Begin the writing process by stating your own ideas, then go back to the author's original work. So it's important to establish what you're bringing to the paper so that you know these are my thoughts and ideas, and then you know how to supplement with research. Use quotation marks and credit the source, the author, when you copy exact wording. Use your own words when you paraphrase instead of copying directly when possible. And I think we've both said this before, even when you paraphrase another author's writings, you must give credit to that author. If the form of citation and reference are not correct, the attribution to the original author is likely to be incomplete. So you definitely want to get a style manual and use it, or at the very least, we rely on OWL at Purdue, and you can Google that and go straight there, and that is the best online reference that we use ourselves and that we know of to learn how to document your sources.
And you do have a lot of help here at Webster between the library and the Writing Center with helping to figure out some trickier forms of citation. But there's a lot you can do independently. OWL is wonderful. The biggest thing is be in communication with your faculty member. Make sure that, oversighting is preferred to underciting.
And make sure when you talk to your professor that you know exactly the expectation of your citation is. In other words, find out if you're using MLA, Chicago Manual of Style, or APA for your paper, because you don't want to accidentally use the wrong form of citation.
Tracking your sources. This is something that I, Holly, as your librarian, really get concerned about, because I do help students find materials for their papers, for their background research, for their literature reviews. And a lot of times plagiarism is not intentional. It's simply a matter of, I got disorganized and when writing the paper, I kind of forgot that was a quote, or forgot to cite this one source, or got an article but didn't write down the whole citation immediately, and now I can't quite cite it properly. These are some really good suggestions here. In your draft, when you're initially writing the paper, highlight or color code those materials that you're taking from outside sources. That will help you remember to make sure that you've cited that, whether you're paraphrasing or quoting. Carefully write your pages with the correct formatting. As Carolyn said, make sure from your professor that you know right away what style you're using. So you're going to have a reference page or a works cited page, or a Chicago Manual of Style page, depending upon your citation style. And it's really best as you're gathering those sources at the library end when you're starting with your research, that go ahead and make the citation right then and there. And it's easier to just remove a few citations if you end up not citing that particular work cited. But at least you're staying organized and you're tracking what you're using.
You know, Holly, I agree with you completely. I think we've all had the experience where we were in a hurry to write a paper and we wrote the paper and we said, okay, I'll do my sources later after I'm done writing my paper. And what happens is that you go back to do your references and you can't find where you got this source, or you're not sure of the exact page number, so you may put down the wrong page number so that you have something there. And these kinds of things really, while we've all experienced them, these kinds of things really can be avoided if you are organized up front and keep really good track of your sources. And that will ensure academic integrity for you. So stay organized. As you're writing your draft, keep track of each idea and each source you are using, noting its location in the original text, because being organized enables proper attribution of sources.
And it's really good to get in this habit as early as possible. If you're an undergraduate and a freshman and writing an occasional paper, and maybe think this is not so important now, depending on your discipline, you may be writing a lot. And if you can get in these good habits now, you're only going to be doing yourself a favor later. If you're thinking about grad school or continuing your education, these are super, super critical skills to have. So you might as well start right away.
The work is yours. So the foundation of the paper needs to be strong. And when drafting, remember to achieve a balance between your own ideas and the research that you're bringing into your paper, and then reflect on what you have learned and offer new insights on your topic. Because remember, your professors want to hear from you. They want to know what you have to say on any given subject. They want to hear your voice and your ideas.
And use those sources wisely. Use quotation marks when you're using the exact wording and cite. If you're paraphrasing, you don't need the quotation marks, but you still need the citation in text, the footnote, so that you can identify what section of your paper is rephrasing someone else's ideas. Compare the paraphrases to the original to make sure that you're capturing the idea, but that you're not just carrying over the same structure with a few words changed out.
And stay on target. Learn how to manage your time and stress effectively. Set small and attainable daily study and work goals, and plan for the challenges that will come, and be adaptable. Students ask me all the time how to overcome writer's block, and I really suggest to them that it's much more effective and actually less stressful to write a little bit each day. Even if you write for 20 to 30 minutes each day, you can get a lot done in that small period of time, and keep going every day instead of waiting till the Sunday before the paper's due and trying to sit down for an 8-hour marathon and having writer's block and being stuck. That's when students make poor choices. So you're much, much better off getting started early and writing a little bit each day. And if you don't know what to write, you can free write on the topic that's assigned to you, and you'd be surprised at what ideas might come out of that.
And probably most importantly in this whole presentation, excuse me, there are people here at the university waiting to help you.
That's absolutely correct, Holly.
So really important to stay in touch with your instructor. That professor can help clarify your assignments. You can bounce ideas off of them. You're thinking about going in this direction. Do they think that's appropriate? You found this source. Are they familiar with it? They're invested in you being successful. So keep them informed. ask them lots of questions. They really do want to see you succeed. My friend here, Carolyn, over in the Academic Resource Center, has so much she can offer.
We have a writing center. We have an online writing center if you're a graduate student, and we can help you with any stage of your writing process, from brainstorming to thesis to organization to documentation. We can help you with any of those writing parts that you have.
And then here in the library, we're standing by to help you as well. We do a lot of telephone reference. We've got 24/7 chat. Email help is available. And we can help with everything from the initial background research, if you're having trouble figuring out what database to be in or what terms to be searching, those research strategies, all the way up through citation. Sometimes you do find that you have to cite things that maybe are not conventional. It's not a book or an article. Maybe it's a film. Maybe it's an interview you had to do with a supervisor, or some other type of information, a legal statute or a blog that's not going to be as straightforward a format as a book or a journal article. The librarians are happy to help you with that. We can figure out what the format is and talk you through how to make that happen so that your paper is as academically honest as possible.
And, Holly, don't you have a 24-hour chat line?
Our chat is 24/7, so you can always get help no matter where you are in the world. Our research librarians are on the desk Central Time till 10 o'clock several nights a week. But no matter where you are, no matter what time it is, throughout the library's website, you will find the ability to chat. From our homepage, it's Contact a Librarian.
And remember, we don't have all of the answers for citation. We have to look things up too, don't we, Holly?
Absolutely.
So don't be hard on yourself and don't expect that you're going to be able to get every citation right away, but do ask for help. That's why we're here. We're here to help you. We want you to succeed, and we want you to maintain your academic integrity.
And just as we preach, we are citing our sources as well. So we want to thank you for your time today. If you do have any questions, please reach out to either of us at the library, at the Academic Resource Center. We are standing by to help you.
We sure are. Thank you so much.